Banana, you want to do the song?
No, I don't, because I forget it. But I will say Happy Pride to everybody.
Amanita like quietly nailed it in the background. Welcome to Love in Brief, a brief ABDL advice podcast focused on issues of love. All kinds of love. Love for the community, love for yourself, love for others. And it is Pride Month here in 2024. We started out the month with a specific LGBTQ-focused episode, and I want to end the month with just such an episode. This episode, I am delighted to be sort of a part two. If you scroll all the way back to episode, I think it's 47. Whoa, have we been doing this for that long? Episode 47. We began one conversation on discussing what it's like to be trans and a part of the ABDL community. And we'll call this part Deux, because there's obviously a million experiences out there, and we want to learn from everybody that we can. And I have three folks here who are going to speak today to their experiences. So I can't wait to introduce you to my guests. I will start with somebody you may have heard on our CapCon live episode this year. My very close friend and metamor, is that the word? Banana?
I think we've gone back and forth on, I think officially it's metamor, but I prefer paramour as we've adopted. So
from a musical standpoint, I prefer paramour. I agree.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So this would be the partner of my partner and my very close friend. I just love her to death. So welcome, Banana. And I wonder if you would tell us about your love.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for having me, RY. And I'm really happy to be on here, especially talking about this. Yeah, I'd love to talk about my love. We were just talking a second ago about, I've been racking my brain for a while about what I want to talk about, and I've so much love. But I think I'll highlight a little bit of I've gotten into pinball over the last year and a half, almost 2 years now, thanks to
I was
yourself.
so hoping you were going to say that. I was so hoping you were going to pick that.
Absolutely will. I just actually I've joined. I went from just playing at your house over New Year's to joining my first women's league to just last season I won my first women's league. So my
holy
first
shit
league championship. So,
you know, in like a year, you have come back to become better than me, and I hate that about you.
I
but
don't know about that. You do give me a
true.
lot of credit, but
It's
I appreciate it, and it's just been so much fun, and there's just such an amazing supportive community in my hometown where I get to play, and I've traveled to you a few times and get to play, and there's just such a supportive community there, and it's just been really lovely. I haven't really encountered anybody who's like, a cutthroat competitor who's, not going to help you out. Everybody is like, this is how you play this game, and everybody seems to be really out for fun, and that's how I like to do things. So yeah, I think that's been really lovely, and I can't talk about my love without talking about our partner Lola as well, who brings so much love into my life and your life as well. So
absolutely, yeah. Shout out to Lola. Originally I had planned on Lola joining us for this conversation. She can't because she's traveling, but I share that love with you and the love of pinball. We have so much in common. And I should ask, this is something I always ask before we get on, but because we're going to talk a lot about gender today, I just want to sort of call it out. What pronouns do you use, Banana? This is a good practice for us to get into.
Thank you so much, and oh my gosh, that should just be part of my introduction, right? So yeah, I am going by H Banana, and I use she/they pronouns. Thanks so much for asking.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to introduce our next guest, another longtime friend, and maybe this person will say pinball too, but maybe they have other loves as well. But I'm so delighted to bring on Amanita. Thank you for coming to Love and Brief.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, RY. I really appreciate it. I guess, yeah, for my love, I guess Banana took pinball, so let me think.
So that one's crossed off, yeah.
Yeah, so cross that one off the very top of my list. I don't know, lately I've been thinking a lot about how much I just love goofballs. Like people who are just like silly and down to just like, I don't know, just be goofy and weird, Like if you're not being just a little bit silly, then like what the fuck are you doing with life, Like,
I completely agree. I completely.
Am I allowed to swear? Can we swear on this? Is that a
Fuck
thing?
yeah,
Okay,
it's
cool.
no problem. I completely agree. Like those goofballs in my life bring so much fun and absurdity and get me out of my serious headspace all the time, which I just love.
Yeah. I don't trust people who can't be a little bit silly. It's like, why are you taking yourself so seriously?
That has made me so much more excited to get to meet you in person for the first time sometime soon. So.
Oh, y'all are going to be fast friends. I promise. Knowing both of you, y'all are going to be fast friends. And I'll ask you the same question that I asked Banana here, which is, would you share your pronouns with me?
Yeah. My pronouns are she or they. I think most people in my life use she, her, but you can throw in a they every once in a while. Shake it up, keep it spicy.
Yeah, I'll sprinkle that in like bacon on a salad.
Oh, cool. I'll be looking out for it.
Awesome. Thank you. And I also want to welcome another brand new person to Love in Brief, and somebody that I am just getting to meet this week and so thrilled. So I will welcome you, Pedro, to Love in Brief and ask, tell me a little bit about your love.
So thank you for having me on the podcast, by the way, and it's nice to meet you.
Likewise.
My love is definitely Latin dancing. I am super passionate about it. I have competed before, but mostly I just enjoy taking classes.
Oh, that is so good. Is there a particular style of Latin dance that you tend to get most sort of into?
My favorite is Brazilian samba. I do like salsa a lot, but I would say samba is probably my favorite.
Oh, that stuff is so hot. Just musically, it's so awesome.
That's how I got into it, the music.
Oh.
Yeah, and then
by virtue of the music,
yeah. I just got into it and I was like, this sounds amazing. And I'm not a gym person, but dance, I love it so much.
That is so cool. And I took a couple of Latin classes one time, and honestly, the workout was so good.
Yep.
I was sweating profusely the entire time. It's a wonder anybody was willing to dance with me. It is such a great workout.
That's exactly part of the reason why I love it. I just have a great time. You know, it's a stress relief. I just have a blast.
What is the perfect diaper to wear to Latin dancing? That's what I want to know.
Oh, so actually, this is actually, I've talked to other people who dance. For me, those two are like two things that don't go together. I tried it one time and I said, I love these two things separate. It's like fire and water. They should never go together, at least for me personally.
That's great. It's like, pizza and gum. Like I can enjoy both, but not at the same time.
That's perfect.
I do love that you had an answer ready to go. Like that didn't even faze you. You were like, oh, this is a discussion we've already had.
Yeah, because I have talked to somebody else out here in the community and they do like it. But for me, it's like pizza and gum or fire and water. You don't put those together.
Yeah, I get that. Honestly, I am so averse to being hot that I can't imagine doing them together. More power to the people who do, but I would just get so gross.
Yeah.
Well, I welcome you, and I should ask the same question I asked the others. Tell me about the pronouns that you use.
Oh, yes. My pronouns are he, him. And thanks for asking.
Thank you for that. You bet. And I'll say my pronouns are he, him as well. And what a perfect jumping off point for us to begin to talk about the topic of gender, and specifically to talk about the topic of what it's like to be trans and in the ABDL community. And I'm wondering if any of the three of you, and I'll just let you jump in as you feel fit, but if anybody would be willing to share the journeys. I'm so used to talking to people about their ABDL journey. I am not as used to talking to somebody about their gender journey and their ABDL journey at the same time. How have those journeys coincided? How did it work out that you sort of were able to come to terms with these things and make them a part of your life and identity? So anybody who wants to jump in, it's all you.
Yeah, I'll jump in there. My ABDL journey and my gender journey were actually coincided in a lot of ways. Like, I think the first place that I used any pronouns that weren't he, him was at Capcom in like 2016 or 2017. And the only reason was because I was feeling I was feeling a little gendery, or I was just like, what the heck's going on? And then going through the registration line, I was like, oh, they have pronoun like tags, and there was one for they them. And at the time, I don't know what made me think to do it, but I was like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna be they them this weekend, and
Wow.
yeah, so that was like, I think my first real. I mean, I had been, experimenting with like very close people in my life, and like trying out new names and stuff, and trying to figure out what was going on for me gender wise. And then I learned about non-binary identities, and that really started resonating with me. But yeah, a really big inflection point was definitely that con.
Wow. It's wild
Yeah.
because that exact story, I was on the Cautious Little Heart podcast with Nikki a couple weeks ago. And Nikki told a very similar story of like seeing the badges and being able to pick the badge yourself was the moment. And I think, she shared this openly on the podcast, so I feel comfortable sharing. This was the moment that she said, I'm going to try this. This is right to me.
Yeah, totally. I think there's also something about that environment that is just like so freeing. I mean, partially because I didn't know anyone, so it felt like the stakes were somewhat low. But then also it's an environment of just like weirdos. I say that very affectionately. And so
I always call us weirdos too. Yeah.
yeah, and so it feels like, oh, maybe being a little like having a little bit of gender with it isn't going to be all that strange, and isn't going to be like the weird thing that I feel uncomfy about. And yeah, and then it turned into just the thing that brought me so much connection and so much understanding of myself. And then I'd spent a couple years, I guess, living kind of nomadically and bouncing around and spending a lot of my time alone. And I think that's really when it solidified in my brain sort of my sense of like identity. And I decided to start hormones, and that was a process that was just so fulfilling and fun for me. And then yeah, so and then as I've become more comfortable in my gender, I've also become a lot more comfortable with my fetish, and made so many friends in the community from all over the place. And yeah, so those journeys for me have really been sort of linked in a pretty big way.
Wow. It's amazing to me to hear the sort of, I'm in this giant group context, and they have created at Capcom a safe place for me to put this name tag on. And from that point forward, to go through such a life-changing journey to the point where you describe when I'm alone, and this period of being by myself actually sort of cemented it, that you actually started more in a public context and then found your sort of identity solidified by yourself. I think that's really fascinating.
That's really neat.
It
Thank
is.
you for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Thanks
I-
for listening.
I find it interesting because I actually came out as trans prior to my first like CAP experience, and so a little bit different for me. But it really resonates when you said that those journeys were, very similar, parallel, and I saw that for myself too. And it's funny. I think a lot of people in the ABDL community can maybe sympathize or empathize a little bit with the journey that a lot of trans people take. For me, I did a lot of, like, when it came to ABDL stuff, I would go, a town or two over if I was gonna go try to buy my first pack of diapers, and or when I first discovered what online shopping was, and being able to buy stuff and have it shipped to my house. And for a long time, that was my experience with trying to explore my gender identity as well.
Okay.
That I in with the background in my life growing up and the values instilled in me from a more of a conservative household, I held on to a lot of shame about being potentially being trans, or I don't even know if I had the words for it back then, but um, realizing that I was a lot more feminine than I was born as, and wanting to explore that, but feeling a lot of shame in wanting to do that. So very similarly, when I was off to college, and I would drive two, 3 towns over to go shopping and buy the clothes that made me feel like me. And those clothes would be, I'd come home and they'd be crumpled up or rolled up in a ball and stuffed behind, in a drawer in my dresser somewhere. And similarly, I think a lot of us may be able to resonate with that idea of that was like our little stuff for a lot of people, diapers or onesies or whatever, and they're all locked away, hidden away, where we can't or we don't want to engage with those except in certain circumstances. And as now quite different, my gender identity is not a fetish, but now today, those clothes that were crumpled up in the bottom of my dresser somewhere, now that's my whole wardrobe. And I find that so incredibly fulfilling now. And it's been quite a journey to come to that. So
When you talk about the crumpled up clothes, the thing that you traveled, multiple towns over to buy, and you were all scared of it, and then brought it home and it was hidden in the corner and rolled up. And I mean, that's an experience I can absolutely identify with. And I just so appreciate you helping me find that connection to your experience. And I know it's by no means the same thing to be ABDL and be trans, but to find this empathic connection to that experience, boy, I feel that.
And I'll add to say that I would often, purge that stuff too, which I think is a lot, is very similar that some folks have gone through as well. Emanita, please.
Yeah, I really like that you pointed out sort of the through line of like shame between the two of them, because while they are very different experiences and like they both just, I guess, have that element, or at least for me. I mean, I grew up Catholic, so I am no stranger to shame, and and
me too.
So like that the like parallel is something I haven't really thought about too hard before. So I really like that you bring that up.
Yeah, be careful thinking about it too hard though. Do it in therapy. No, at least that's what I do.
I would encourage most of our topics on Love and Brief, like do it half in therapy. That's how I got to do the podcast, was just years and years of therapy. That's good advice. I'm curious, Pedro, for your experience, has there been an overlap or an interplay between your journey with gender and your journey with ABDL?
So, they're kind of different. Basically, you can let me know if this is like, if I'm going off topic or something, but I'll just start with, I knew when I was like really little, something was different about me. I obviously didn't know the terminology or anything, but I knew in my head I was born in the wrong body. That something was wrong. I didn't know what it was, and I ended up basically, I'm originally from New York City, but I wanted to get far away from my family because I didn't know how they would react, and I ended up. One friend in high school had mentioned, "Oh, maybe you're trans." And I didn't really know what that meant. But then I wanted to go out here for college because of the weather. I love warm weather. But anyways, in my first semester, I did Psychology 101. And then I was like, oh, that friend was right. And then basically my first semester, I started figuring stuff out, like going on hormones. I eventually told my family. They understood with time. And as far as ABDL, at first on FetLife and all those places, I wasn't sure about what to put for gender. Eventually, I ended up changing it to trans because I didn't want people rejecting me, which had happened. and it was just easier to just change it. And then if they didn't want to talk to me, fine. It's easier to talk to people that were interested. So those two kind of things were pretty different. Not super related, but I am just very cautious. Like, I have been to TeddyCon and other kinds of events, but before, like, if someone wants to change me, I'll let them know that I'm trans, because I've had that rejection. It sucks. So I'd rather
can
tell
imagine.
someone in advance. Yeah, pretty much.
Pedro, that's a really interesting, if I can jump in.
Sure.
Thank you for calling that out right there, I guess. Thank you for calling that out. The idea of having to disclose to someone is, at least for me, can be very nerve-wracking, and I can't imagine how that was for you, or how that is in that situation for you.
Also nerve-wracking. Very
Yeah,
nerve-wracking.
I can imagine, and generally my rule of thumb is, when it comes to disclosing I'm trans, and oftentimes I don't need to disclose. Sometimes I'm clocked from a mile away, but I don't usually talk or discuss my genitals, which is often a big focus of people in the trans community, sadly. But often I don't really discuss my genitals with somebody unless there is a circumstance where they will come in contact with my genitals, and that kind of situation that you just talked about, Pedro, is one of those. And that's a little bit like, oh shit, now I have to have this conversation with somebody. Am I ready to have that?
Yeah, that's why I have, most of the time, if I am at a place where I want someone to change me, or that comes up, it's probably someone I know, or I like ask them beforehand, and I try and guess how their like body language is, and how they respond to me being trans. And if it's positive, I'll go for it, and if it's not, I'll be like, I probably will just say no thank you.
Can I ask you on that point? I love that. I love that method, I love it. Can you talk a little bit more about, like, you said you watch their body language or their reaction? Can you tell me about, like, what you're looking for in that?
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out, are they cool with me being trans, with other trans people, with the LGBT community, or are they just wanting to change me? So they just, like, I don't know, I try and see if they're just like wanting to change me, or if they actually are like supportive and understanding and cool with me being
Yeah.
trans and trans community in general.
What are some ways, and Amanita, maybe you have some thoughts on this too, what are some ways or things people say or do that kind of, those maybe those green flags, right, of somebody who is accepting, or as Pedro's talking about, like, somebody who is that safe person?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, green flag, I mean, especially with cis people, I mean, I tend to date a lot of like trans and other like gender non-conforming people, but if I'm dating cis people, it's like a big green flag is if you've actually thought about your gender and you've actually like engaged with the question of like, okay, how do I know I'm cis? Have I like messed around? Have I experimented with like different pronouns, even if it's like a short-term thing or something? So that's like a huge green flag is if they've actually reflected on it.
Even the willingness to stop and think about their gender.
Yeah, because that shows like an acceptance of like, the like gender as a concept and this like sort of squishy thing that we're all trying to figure out. And it shows, I guess, a willingness to engage with it beyond, I guess, the sort of closed-minded view that is sort of the cultural norm a lot of the time.
I love that. I often do a Trans 101 course through work and with other companies and stuff, and one of the topics I have people do is to think about their own gender, and think about, if you identify as a man, what is it about you that makes you a man, or if you identify as a woman, what is it about you that makes you a woman? And I think for a lot of cisgender people, that level of introspection doesn't really take place. So I love that you have that as, and you encourage people to do.
You said that you have some kind of trans 101. What is that? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So I did a lot of volunteer and advocacy work through my company that I've worked at for about 11 years or so now. And myself and several others that are trans at my job, we put together both a Trans 101 and a Trans 102. A course that's geared towards a cisgender audience, and to give, in the case of Trans 101, just an introductory explanation of, some general terminology, explaining basic concepts of gender identity, gender expression, sex assigned at birth, and how those things can differ from sexual orientation. And some common questions, and then Trans 102 gets into some heavier topics like microaggressions, discriminatory practices, and transphobic rhetoric, and then how we can combat that kind of thing. And I've done that with my company for several years, and I've actually had the pleasure of taking that to several external companies as well.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and say I asked Banana to come do it at my company. She did it, and it was amazing. And I had cisgendered colleagues coming to me saying, I've literally never heard or thought about it this way. This was so helpful. So I'll just brag on you for a second. You are
That's
awesome
so
at it.
cool.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's truly, I love teaching, and I love talking to people, and sometimes I talk too much, so it works out well for me. So I appreciate it.
You could just start a podcast. That's what I did when I discovered I couldn't stop talking. So I'm so intrigued by this concept of like cisgender people just never question their gender. And I'll back up to Pedro, as you were telling your story, it occurred to me that like my privilege was very obvious to me in this moment, because I've never thought about what will somebody think when they see my genitals. I've never thought, in addition, that that's something I should disclose to somebody sort of before we have an interaction, like those are all privileges that I have as a cisgendered person. And it really strikes me when you say that those are not things that you get to take for granted, and that you have to make plans around, and that, y'all are talking about like trying to sort of clock somebody's opinion and potential aggression before you ever even introduce your identity to them. These are all things that I don't live with, and I'm so grateful for you telling your story and bringing those to my awareness and to the awareness of other people who don't go through that every day. What a thing to have to think about.
Actually, I don't. I do like to go to. There are events out here, but I guess overall, I tend to stick to small groups these days. But when I was going to more bigger parties, I always wanted privacy, just because there can be that one person who's anti-trans or just a jerk. So I always say, okay, but it has to be private, or only this one person can come because I know them and trust them. You're right. You're lucky, honestly. You have that privilege. You don't have to deal or experience that. But I know from experience, I rather it be small and private so that I don't need to feel rejected, because that sucks.
I can imagine. Yeah. And even calling it out and saying this is a thing that you experience, it inscribes itself now into my imagination in such a way that now I can look out for it. Am I creating an environment at all times where you wouldn't have to go through that, or where nobody would have to go through that? I also think it's weird. I don't talk about my genitals with anybody ever, and yet people who are trans have to think about it and talk about it as you list your identity. I mean, when I log into FetLife, I haven't listed that on my profile. It's not a thing anybody engages me on. It's just an entire burden that I think cisgendered people like me just don't live with. So I so appreciate you bringing that to my awareness.
Yeah, no problem. I definitely have that on mine because I feel like that helps. I mean, still, sometimes there will be people that are just, I guess, interested in me for being trans, but I just ignore them. But for me, it's better to just have that on there. Hopefully they've read it, but if someone does message me and I don't know them, I probably will ask them, I don't know, just like what they think about the community and or trans, etc. Because I'd rather be safe than sorry at this point.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Something, Amanita, that you mentioned earlier when we kind of started this question around like how do you or like what steps or things do you look for before engaging in somebody, and you said you um, a lot of times surround yourself with trans and gender non-conforming people within the community. That is something that I feel like I am lacking in my life, and I'm trying to make strides and trying to meet more amazing trans people who are into ABDL like myself. But I guess my question is, how'd you find everybody?
Yeah, there's sort of maybe a longish answer to that question because for a long time I didn't. For a long time it was like I also didn't have much, I guess, trans community in the ABDL world, especially locally to like where I am. And then I guess the way I found people was just being, I think, a little more open about it and a little more comfortable with just like talking about having a diaper fetish or like talking about ABDL like it wasn't this big weird thing. And like, don't get me wrong, it's something I still am like I guess embarrassed about at best and ashamed of at worst. But like, yeah, I guess trying to treat it like it's not this like big scary thing and it's just like fun quirk. I find that people like totally mirror whatever energy you come at it with, right? So if you sort of wrap it up like it's this huge scary weird thing that I feel really bad about, then people will absolutely pick up on that and say and then like they'll say, oh, this is a big scary weird thing. But if you're just like, yeah, this is just another part of my life and this is something I'm really into and it's actually kind of cute and fun and silly and weird and like then like people will totally pick up on your joy in that and they'll want to know more and they'll want to be a part of it.
Yeah. If you're just like, yeah, it was like shopping and my diaper leaked and it was whatever. And no, I'm just kidding. But no, I think that's a really good point. We get back the energy that we put out there. And I think that's a really good point. If we show that hesitation or anxiety around it, then people may react with that, like that kind of energy too. That makes sense.
Yeah. I will also say like, there are more people who are like, I think in the middle ground of like, it's not their fetish and they didn't grow up with it, but they're not opposed to trying it or like they're not opposed to it and they're like willing to like, I don't know, engage with it in some way or like, or maybe they have engaged with like adjacent sort of play. Yeah, and that sort of middle ground of the people who don't just have the visceral negative reaction to it that I know we're all familiar with, but are more just like, oh, I haven't really thought of that, but like, yeah, sure, okay, let's see how it goes.
Huge props to those people too. Like, thank you so much to those people who are like, I'm not in, like, this isn't my thing, but I'll try it out, and that's great.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I remember I've done a couple episodes with like my closest friends and been like, what's it like being best friends with a person who's into this? And they're like, yeah, it's cool, whatever. It's not my thing, but I dig it. Every time somebody answers with that, I'm like, you're so cool.
I've only ever told like my two best friends. At one point, it was because I was going to TeddyCon, and I'm like, I don't want to lie to her, and I just wanted to take care of my cat. So I ended up telling her, and she was really cool about it. So that was pretty sweet. And then
That's
my other
awesome.
friend, like, we don't really talk about it, but he's pretty chill about it.
I'm really glad to hear that. I mean, my experience talking to just dozens and dozens of people about sharing their ABDL side with people is that it doesn't tend to, on the whole, get rejected, and it's this weird dichotomy because people who talk to me about telling their close friends almost inevitably, not 100%, but almost inevitably say, they just embraced me and said, oh, was that it? Like, was that really the thing you were all worked up about? It? It's fine. I don't care. But then the other side is those same people overhear other friends, or even that friend, which is what happened to me, overhear them talking before they ever found out that you were into ABDL stuff, talking about ABDL in some other context and being like, oh, it's so weird and so gross. And who are these people? We have a cultural dialogue that is like, oh, what a bunch of freaks. And then when you know somebody and they come to you and say, I'm into this, inevitably the answer is like, well, I love you and you're great. And what's the problem? And I've had that in the same person. One of my best friends, he and his wife, we went out to dinner and they were talking about, I don't know what it was, the CSI episode of King Baby or whatever. I don't know what Jerry Springer, who knows? And they just went off on this thing about how ABDLs are so messed up. 2 years later, I'm like, hey, I'm into this thing. And he's like, man, why would you ever think that's a problem to tell me? And I'm like, because 2 years ago, you sat at dinner.
Yeah, because you said this thing at this party that one time. And
This one
You know,
time.
I also think that, like, as we are talking in this episode about, the trans community and the cross section with the ABDL community, there's that makes me think of, like, when we think about what the things we say and the topics we discuss and the energy we bring into those kinds of discussions, um, that has long reaching implications, and I have run into that, or I have heard from other people who have run into that within the trans community. And we you or somebody mentioned about being concerned about coming out as trans. And Amanita, I'm not sure if that was you, or Pedro, if that was you, but I know for me, I thought for the longest time my family would have to be dead and buried before I could come out as trans. And because the reason was because I grew up with a rhetoric of the LGBTQ community being bad and negative and really terrible. And so I thought there is no way my family could ever accept me, because those were the things I was taught growing up. Those were the statements, the general rhetoric growing up. And my coming out story was not the best at the time, but my family has since come around quite a bit. And it's funny you should say that. Before he passed, when we came out to my grandfather, his reaction exactly was, "Is that it?"
Wow.
And
that was your grandfather.
My grandfather, and I'm pretty sure he
Wow.
had Fox News on while he was saying that, which is something.
So we're saying something, yeah.
But to your point, you heard this 2 years ago from a dear friend who talked negatively about ABDL stuff, and you thought, "Gosh, there's no way in hell I could share that with this person." And similarly, I think a lot of people in the trans community may have experienced that with their gender identity and their family and the rhetoric they experienced growing up.
yeah, totally. There's like a humanizing element to like knowing someone who is trans or knowing someone who is into ABDL sort of thing. Like, not to draw too many parallels, because I think it's important to emphasize like these are different sets of life experiences with different sets of stakes tied to them. But it's like it's a different thing when the only trans people you know about are in murder movies and like porn, versus, oh, it's actually this person who I know who's a real human being and has like thoughts and hopes and dreams. It really helps, I think, humanize it for people.
It's one of the great. Oh, go ahead, Pedro.
I actually I didn't really know much about LGBT growing up, and But in my head, I was like, well, if this is, I wasn't really sure how I was, but I was like, I have to wait till I'm far away because I don't know how they're going to react, meaning my parents. They reacted fine and eventually understood, but I ended up just sending them a long letter home because I wanted it to take longer because I didn't know how they were going to react and I was very nervous.
Oh, wow. So you sent it by mail because there would be a delay.
Yeah, because it took close to a week to get to them because I was here in Arizona going to school and then they're back in New York.
Oh my gosh. For me, I feel like it would feel like you're prolonging the scariest conversation by waiting a week
I
to
was
get
so
there.
nervous. I was like, this needs to take forever because I don't know what is going to happen once they read it.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
Thank you for saying that. I actually came out over email for
I
similar
also
reasons.
came out over email.
What? This is so cool, and I've never heard anybody else do the same thing. And now here's 3 of us doing something similar.
I
That's
sent
amazing.
my whole family an email, and I was like, if you have questions, you know my number. Thanks. Bye.
Wow. I love that. Like, here's my whole story. If you have questions, you know where I am.
I think,
That is
at
so
least for
cool.
me, part of it was wanting to give them time to process without feeling pressure to respond in the moment, you know?
Are we the same person? I was gonna say the
I was
same
just
thing.
thinking that.
And for
Oh
me,
my
I can say what I'm feeling better in writing because then I have more time to think about it. So, and I wanted them to have time, and yeah, so I did writing instead.
Pedro, I'm
Yeah.
curious. Oh, go ahead. Banana.
No, please go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I see this incredible little community we're building on this call, and I love it. I'm curious, Pedro, if you found other trans men in the community the same way that Amanita and Banana were talking about finding other trans people in the community. Have you found other trans men in the community?
To be honest, I haven't found that many trans people in the community. I know more trans women, but most of my closer ABDL friends are gay men. Most of yeah,
see.
I don't know too many trans men into it.
Well, if we do contact info at the end and you want to share your info and you want somebody to reach out who is another trans man in the community, you are welcome to share your info. And you're also welcome to say, no RY, I'm not doing it. Banana, I cut you off before and I apologize.
No, I was really just reacting to what Pedro had said, and because I both Amanita and Pedro spoke to 2 of the big reasons why I chose to come out over email, and one, I really wanted to give them my family the opportunity to kind of have their own reaction without having to worry about how I would perceive their response or their reaction to. So I was really just commenting back to what Pedro had said a second ago.
Oh, that's good. So another benefit was that they could have their reaction. You're not worried about watching their reaction. They're not worried about you watching their reaction.
Yeah.
Then you can engage the conversation.
I do want to. I know I am not your co-host, and this is not my podcast, but I'm asking the questions now.
You are a fantastic co-host. Keep it up. Keep it up, baby.
No, I do want to ask Amanita and Pedro what your thoughts are on my experience and just a lot of the people within the trans and gender nonconforming community that I've met have not everyone, but a lot of people do have a bit of experience with kink or the kink community as a whole. And I've heard from several people that there is quite a big overlap between the trans community and the ABDL community, maybe a little bit more so than the cisgender community as a whole. And I'm wondering, one is, has that been your experience with people, or if not, what has been your experience, and do you have maybe a reason for what that overlap is, or why there is such a cross section?
I don't know if there's an overlap, and I don't know that many people like in person, but I am part of a large Arizona group, and there are lots. Mostly it's trans women, but there are many of them in our group. I don't really know what the connection or overlap is, but I have noticed that, and when I have been online or maybe to TeddyCon because that was a while ago. I think I did notice people.
Yeah, I will say that first of all, like the history of kink and the history of like gender queerness and like transness are very very tied, which I think makes a lot of sense when you think about like gender deviancy from social norms. Makes a lot of like that makes sense that that would be tied to sexual deviancy, right? And so like those histories have really evolved together over time. I will say I have noticed. I think it's pretty clear, like walking around a con, like that, like, oh wow, there are a lot of trans people here, and I'm not sure if that is. Yeah, like I don't have any reasons behind that. I have theories. I think part of it is just like being in an environment where you are comfortable exploring just different ways of being and like different sort of headspaces to exist in might naturally lend itself to a sort of self-discovery process that maybe people don't have elsewhere. But yeah, I don't know. I think I do think that that should be studied.
Can I ask, what do you think? You said you might have a theory. What like, I'm curious about that.
Oh, I think yeah, just sort of like what I was saying, like if you're in an environment that is already sort of pushing you out of your comfort zone, right? And you're already maybe like experimenting with like a different headspace, or maybe you're doing a scene and then someone called you like a little bitch once, and you're like, wait a minute, but I'm a boy, I can't, but if that, and then you start to think and connect the dots, and then like, yeah, so I think having an environment that is, I guess, open to and accepting of experimentation might foster, I guess, more self-exploration, I think is, I guess, my main theory. I've also heard theories that involve, because there are also a lot of, I think, self-described autistic people in the community, myself included. And I think it has been studied. I'm not well versed enough to actually be able to quote a study, but there is a higher prevalence of gender nonconformity and transness among autistic people, which I think also maybe is due to the social nonconformity and being less, like maybe feeling less pressure to conform to the idea that of yourself that society puts on you.
I love this theory. And it's funny because I was about to make that same connection to autistic people and the community. I just recently listened to a kink podcast, not ABDL, but kink podcast, that focused on an academic study of the connection between the furry community and autistic people and people on the autism spectrum. And it absolutely, from a scientific lens, paid off the theory that there are more autistic people into that particular kink. Your observations that you tend to see it in ABDL, I think I share those observations, and I love your theory on the connection, that this is a place where you are allowed to present in non-typical fashions and be accepted and loved, and so it invites people to be open about who they are. If I heard your theory right.
Yeah, I think that maybe is a better wording of the sort of rambling explanation that I gave. So
no, It's so brilliant. It's so brilliant and makes total sense to me.
I want to add to it too, if I can, and just, I think similarly too, as we talked about before, as Pedro touched on earlier, of like, if there is kind of an intimate interaction I'm going to have with somebody, whether that's a diaper change or some kind of sexy fun or something like that, for a lot of us in not just the trans community but the queer community as a whole, we have to get used to negotiation. in that, if it's a same-sex couple, there is usually a discussion of who is topping, who's bottoming. We talked earlier about, having to, when do we disclose to a potential partner about ourselves or our body, and a lot of what comes along with that too is what are we comfortable with? And for a lot of people in the trans community, that can, that can come into play with dysphoria. What's okay here, what's not okay. And I think that level of negotiation is something we kind of have to get used to by default. And then by doing so, that does make us a lot better at that negotiation when it comes to engaging in a kink scene of any kind, whether it's ABDL or another kink altogether.
I'm so glad you called that out. One of my questions for this group, you've started to answer there, is like, what are the things that you are probably better at when it comes to navigating your ABDL kink because of your experience as a trans person? And you just called one out.
I picked that one.
Banana, you got one. You've already filled your form out. You got it. Are there others?
Actually, I'm still, I guess, a lot of it due to being trans. I've never really been out with anyone just because I'm just been anxious, and so that's still really new to me. Yeah, but you kind of just like reminded me of that.
So dating, when you say been out with the people, like dating?
Yeah, I am actually talking to someone now. I've been talking to him almost a year, and like I met him on a dating app because, to be honest, I kind of gave up on trying to find someone in the community because I feel as being trans it's harder. Maybe that's not true. I don't know, but for me, and so I like this guy a lot, and let's just call him Jay. And like I don't know, like after the first 2 or 3 times I told Jay, look, there's something I need you to know about me that I really like, and if we work out well, you don't need to participate in it, but I'm not going to give it up. And I even had him listen to what's her name? Her name, I don't remember her whole name, but her name is Lo, and she has a little. I even had him listen to that, and he was really cool about it and understanding. So I'm hoping if things go well, maybe there's something there in the future, but we'll see.
That's great. Thank
That's
you for
exciting,
sharing that, and I'm excited for you and Jay and whatever your future holds. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
and
that's so great. Thank you, Pedro.
That takes such guts to step out of, into the world of dating, and it sounds like you had a difficult, what could be a really difficult conversation, and I know how scary that conversation can be. I've had it too, and holy moly, it sounds like it went great. Yeah,
It really was, but I really like him a lot, and I just felt like I need to try something because I don't feel like the FET websites were working for me. I want to be attracted to them. I want to like them. I still want this kink, obviously, but I would like them to be involved, but it's not, as long as I can still do it myself, for me, that's what's important.
That's so good. Amanita, I think you were jumping in there too.
I forgot what I was going to say because what Pedro just said was so sweet and made me
know. It was.
Yeah.
It was.
If I can, I wanted to just, since as we were kind of talking a little bit about like you said, what are we maybe better about or can do well. I guess I wanted to mention something that a good friend of mine had mentioned, my friend Fawn. We had talked a little bit about kind of the interplay between the trans community and the ABDL community, and something she talked about is the concept of bottom dysphoria, which can be common, is not always, but can be common for a lot of trans people. And and for folks who might be listening who may not be familiar, we generally call it bottom dysphoria, but it is I guess feeling of discomfort or incongruence focused more towards our genitals not aligning to our gender identity or what we may envision for ourselves. So that's the quick definition there.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Amanita and Pedro, correct me if I'm wrong on that if you have a different definition, but for people who have bottom dysphoria, sometimes diapers are kind of like a no-brainer. As my friend Fawn had said, she said, "Oh, what if we could easily make your genitals completely smooth and make it so using a wand on yourself is the best feeling in the world?" Like,
Whoa.
duh.
Right?
Whoa, you're blowing my mind right now.
Yeah.
That's so good.
And I loved the way that she put that, and for some people that can be I don't know if no-brainer is the right word for that, but that can be like a revelation for some people, right? Of just like, oh my gosh. This is also after we had a discussion and agreement that first things first, squishy wet diapers are the absolute best thing in the world, and I completely agree.
True. Friend of the show.
Yeah.
Friend of the show.
So back to, I guess, the seeming the prominence of like trans people within the ABDL community. Another theory that I've heard, I don't think this is my theory, but I wish I could remember who I was having this discussion with, was that it makes sense if you are trans and you grew up with like a childhood that was maybe not the childhood that you wanted, that you might be drawn to like regression and to like reliving and reclaiming some of the experiences that you didn't get because you were sort of being forced or you were in a place that you were experiencing the wrong like gender and like a childhood that doesn't resonate with you. So like that combined with you're covering your genitals, which may be something that you feel weird about. That I think makes a lot of sense.
I love that.
That makes so much sense. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
This is so good.
I'm just left. I'm left like thinking about, because I have another friend of mine who is not trans, but has never really enjoyed the process of masturbation via touching their own genitals. And when I think about the ability to sort of take that out of the equation and still have like a really fucking great cum, how much my friend has appreciated that, because they just don't get off that way, and they do get off by having a diaper on and just taking that out of the equation. And so when you call it out here as, it's perfectly smooth and feels great in a diaper with a magic wand, gosh, that just makes so much sense to me. Thank you for that. That
touches perfectly on the question that you asked, RY, of what do you think transness, or I forget your exact wording, but how has being trans made us better at being ABDLs or something along those lines? Yeah. I think like being trans has made me better at sex, like, because like, I don't know, when you have sex with trans people, there's a lot more like I guess communication that has to happen, and like you tend to have a lot less what I call a goal-oriented sex, which is mostly just like there are people who treat sex as a means to a orgasm versus just an experience that you're sharing with another person. And I feel like being trans, like I don't know, a lot of trans women either can't come or have a hard time coming. So like sex just like has to look different, and it can't be like we are doing this thing until you come. So like you get creative and you figure out different ways you can smush your bodies together and different weird silly stuff you can do, and like and that plays very well into ABDL sex as well. So like just
Absolutely.
like a willingness to explore and be silly and try a bunch of different things, and not putting a ton of pressure on like it all culminating into like a big crescendo of everyone orgasming at the same time. I
think that's something I still struggle with, and is hard to let go, but is definitely something my therapist is working very hard to drill into my skull. But you're right, like sex, whatever sex looks like for somebody, like that goal-oriented version of, it has to end in orgasm, that can be really damaging,
Yeah,
and
totally.
it
Like
doesn't
sex
need
is
to
a
be that.
yeah, it also like sex is a communication and a bonding exercise between like two people, and if it starts to become a we need to make our bodies do a specific thing, then that shuts down the connection because, someone gets in their head of like, "Oh God, is this taking too long? Am I doing it right? Oh, are they having fun? If they don't come, does it mean that they're not having fun?" Like you start to get in your head with that, and
Yep.
then yeah.
And I mean, similarly, and uh, thank you, therapist Amanita, because now this is just turning into therapy part 2 for me. But no,
Yeah,
I mean,
let's unpack that.
no, I mean, and that's something absolutely that I'll do too. And whether we're thinking about that in our partner or for ourselves too, sometimes I'll run into that, of like, gosh, I really want to come, and what do I have to do to get there? And okay, it's got to be this, and I got to position the wand this way, or I gotta, my partner needs to enter me this way, or feel that, and if I don't feel that, or I got to read this porn, or this erotica, or watch this porn, or I gotta, and that just builds so much. And then if I end up not coming, that ends up leading to like this awful feeling of, well, and I trigger warning for anyone listening, I personally end up feeling like this, I failed. And that is just such a damaging mindset for me to be in, and is so far from the truth. It's not a failure. I'm
Yeah.
there, whether it's by myself or whether I'm, with my partner. Like it's not a failure. I got to spend that time with my partner, and grow closer to them. And so I loved as you outlined it, Amanita, of just that it's about a connection, and if we focus more on the goal of coming, or a goal of orgasm, then we lose so much of that connection.
Yeah, I think porn has ruined the way a lot of people think about sex. Um, Not to go off on a whole nother tangent there because we have probably other
No,
things
for sure. I
I
mean, this
want
is
to
like
talk about.
this is an amazing topic. Like we need to just come back to this topic because it is so rich. And I love porn, and porn does totally fuck with our notions of how sex, quote unquote, ought to be. And Banana, as you're talking about like bringing these expectations into sex and the expectation of coming instead of just having a shared experience, like that is sort of the root of sexual anxiety. And if you read Emily Nagoski's book, Come As You Are, she's a sex educator out of the Kinsey Institute. She talks about that as like the ultimate brakes on sexual arousal is fear and anxiety about what happens next. Or am I enough? Am I doing the right things? Am I going to come? What if I don't come? Being able to navigate that adeptly makes you a sexual ninja. The fact that you already have experience coming into this with navigating those feelings makes you a sexual ninja. And I'm guessing, and you'd have to ask our partner, probably pretty damn good at it because you are so present to the experience that you can really give each other a present experience. I think that's so cool. Also, I should tell y'all, I'm going to hit you with a question that may be a little tough, so I'm going to give you a heads up ahead of time.
I'm
The
ready.
question I'm about to ask after I give a quick citation here is, what is something you wish the ABDL community knew about your experience of being trans? You don't have to speak for everybody, but about your experience. Before I do that, because I am very bad at show notes, I want to, I've just shared Emily Nagoski's book, Come As You Are, highly recommended. I've talked about it before. I want to share also, I referenced before a podcast about neurodiverse people in kink. That was the Sex and Psychology podcast. The title of that particular episode was, Are Neurodiverse People More Likely to Be Kinky? And the interviewee was Dr. Liam Wignall, who wrote a book called Kinky in the Digital Age. And I should note that I messed up. I said furry-dom. It is not furry-dom. It is pup play. It was the overlap between neurodivergence and pup play. And having done a furry episode, I should note those are not the same thing. And in fact, we have a pup play episode coming up. Okay, that was a lot. So the question I'm going to pose is, what do you wish the ABDL world knew about your experience as a trans person in the ABDL community? And I'm wondering who might be the first person that would be willing to jump in and talk about that. What do you wish the ABDL world knew about your experience as a trans person in our community?
I'm happy to jump in and talk about that.
Thank you, Amanita.
Yeah. So I think if you ask 100 people what it means to be trans, you're going to get 100 different answers, right?
For sure.
And there are, we talked a lot about the difficulties that some of us have run into in both transitioning, both from like a social standpoint and like sexually. And I think one thing that I wish people knew and thought about more was that the trans experience is not homogenous. We are all very different, and the level of difficulty and the level of hardship that comes with being trans is largely going to be correlated to socioeconomic status, which is true of a lot of things, like someone who is, I guess, more well off and is maybe able to take some time off of work to transition, like I did, is going to be in a much better place than someone who is not able to afford to do that and who, like maybe their living situation would be compromised by them transitioning or like what have you. And I think people, we're in Pride Month and there's a lot of talk about like queer solidarity, right? But I think queer solidarity is always going to need to come after class solidarity. And I think that is a conversation that we are just starting to have. I will plug the book, A Brief History of Trans Misogyny by Jules Gill-Peterson. That talks a lot about that and talks a lot about the history of like transgender as a word and where it came from and sort of the motivations behind it. Yeah, I would encourage people to check that out.
Thank you for that. And I had never considered that connection and that overlap between socioeconomic status and the difficulty of being trans. So thank you for that. And I will add that to the show notes as well.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a good thing that there's a mute button here because I'm over here like a parishioner listening to the preacher here as Amanita talks. I'm just like, preach,
Amen.
preach, amen. No, I loved everything you said. It's spot on, and for my answer, I'd like to say, and kind of in a similar vein, is and not to bring the topic down, but as many people know, and not everyone, but as many people know, trans rights are under attack here in the U.S. and really globally, in many different countries. There's a huge focus in calling trans people out, separating us, and trying to take rights away, and that's in a lot of different spaces, whether that's access to gender affirming healthcare, ability to participate in sports, all the way to our ability to be able to use public restrooms, which in several states in the U.S. We are not able to use public restrooms in certain settings. I guess what I would like people in the ABDL community, and I guess as in the kink community as a whole, to know and understand is that as trans rights are dwindling and as we're challenged and pushed away, that has long-reaching implications towards the kink community as a whole as well. Our rights as kinky people, and that that includes everybody, cisgender, transgender. Our rights as kinky people originate from civil rights that were fought for by queer people, by people of color, and without those, we lose the ability to engage in our kink in our spaces, and we face a lot of I guess potential hurdles and roadblocks in being able to just be ourselves. So it's definitely
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
yeah. And to touch on what Amanita said earlier as well about socioeconomic status, oftentimes when we hear about this anti-trans legislation, both in the U.S. and the U.K. and all over the world, oftentimes that is posed as a conversation about what spaces we as trans people should be quote unquote allowed in. Right? Should we be allowed to use restrooms? Should we be allowed to participate in sports? Should we be allowed to access healthcare? And if we're plugging books here, I'd like to plug the Transgender issue by Shon Faye that she talks about in her book about how in mainstream media and when we look at the news and other platforms, it is always based on just what I talked about there. The quote unquote transgender issue is presented as an issue of whether or not trans people should be allowed to exist, whether or not we should have the right to exist in public spaces. And it completely ignores and sidesteps the true issues, which are exactly what Amanita just talked about a second ago, which is our ability to transition, our ability to be who we are is greatly diminished by socioeconomic status, and is hugely impacted by a lot of different factors.
Yeah, can I add to that really
I'm going to
quick?
stop there and let other people speak on that topic. So please do.
I just want to dovetail into that really quick and say like socially we are getting some social victories, Lockheed Martin changed their logo to be rainbow for the month and stuff, but that is coming in the face of all of these attacks on the material conditions that we are living under, and that is it's essentially laundering our consent, right? By saying oh no, look, we put rainbows on stuff. We're super pro trans, pro gay, etc. While they are, on the other hand, fighting to take away our rights.
And donating to anti-LGBT politicians at the same time. Yeah. Completely correct.
It's wild to me that the people who make our jet fighters and missiles are having a great month, saying,
I feel like pride. We just started the podcast. Can we talk for another hour? I feel like we just got into it.
And another thing.
I wanted to comment on all of that stuff that you guys said. I feel like if this won't happen, but if it were reverse, or I don't know how to explain it, but let's say, I don't know, straight cis people had to transition or whatever, it wouldn't even be a question. It would just be it's not going to be not approved. I feel like they're just saying, honestly, we don't want you here with all of these laws, which is just so frustrating. And the rainbow thing, I feel like that's fake approval, because come next month they're going to remove it and then go back to just being anti whatever. And so I feel like a lot of companies are just trying to I don't know, get our money or support, but it's not real. It's I don't know, for me it was really I have to do this or I don't want to be alive, because it was just so miserable being someone I'm not. So I don't know. Yeah. It's just unfair that people all over the world are dying for being themselves, or are at risk or danger or being threatened because they want to be themselves, and society is just telling them that's not allowed.
You're spot on.
I'm saying preach right here, the same thing before. Just yes. And again, this is something when you point out cis and straight people, like myself, frankly, that there's this old adage about we invented universal accessible dick pills before we did birth control, right? Because the people with the dicks were the ones trying to make it happen. The same is true here, that we have not made this a priority. But were the tables reversed, I'm certain gender affirming care would be covered, right? If that's, as you said, the transition that needed to be made. So I'm really glad that you underscored that point. And we don't tend to be a sort of quote unquote political podcast, but this is a human rights issue. This is not a politics issue. And what you're describing is a fundamental human right. So thank you
You're
for
right.
that.
And to go just what I had said earlier is, and I'm sure I could talk politics on here for so long. This impacts us as the ABDL community as well. You
Yeah.
know, our ability to wear what we want, to dress as we want, to do what we like, is at risk when human rights are at risk.
Yeah. Yes. Friends, we're already at time and it's killing me because I feel like we have opened up more cans than we can possibly close, but they're also good. So with your permission, I'd love to maybe do a part two sometime pretty soon. I feel like we've
I'm
barely
down.
dug in. Okay.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Oh, for sure.
I'd love that too.
Awesome. I want to do that too. And you know, I said this is because of Pride Month, and for sure that's why we picked a couple of special episodes, but this is all year round. This is all the time. Just as issues of being lesbian or gay or bisexual or queer, is an all the time, thing that we can learn and talk about. So it doesn't end with Pride Month. I just wanted to be sure and spotlight this month. My friends, I am so grateful to have you. Banana and Amanita, we go back a ways, and I'm so glad to know both of you. And Pedro, I am so glad to make a new friend. And thank you all for coming to share your experiences on Love and Brief.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, RY.
Yeah, thank you, RY. It's always a pleasure to be on, and truly an honor to be on here. And Pedro, yes, absolutely great to meet you. And Amanita, I can't wait to meet in person. So
Yeah, same to you.
Now I know who to invite to my next house party. I think we'll get all three of you here to meet in person. I think it'd be really fun.
Yeah, let's do it.
I love doing contact info. If you want to share, Banana, do you want to share if people wanted to get in touch with you? Is that something you're okay with? And how would they do that?
Yeah, I would love that. As I said earlier, I'm definitely looking for to meet more trans people in the ABDL community. I am H Banana on FetLife, and I believe I'm H Banana09 on Instagram. So would love to connect.
Awesome. Amanita, how about you? If do you want people to be able to get in touch with you? And if so, how would they do that?
Yeah, sure. People can feel free to reach out. I'm, I guess, Instagram and FetLife. I am Amanita Dreams. That is spelled just like it sounds.
Perfect. Thank you. And it's like the mushroom. I learned the mushroom.
It is.
Amanita.
It's a mushroom genus. There's a book called Amanita Nightmares Chanterelle Dreams. So that's where my
Oh,
name
that
came
is
from.
begging to be an emo album. Absolutely.
Definitely.
I love it. And Pedro, do you want people to get a hold of you? And if
Yes.
so, how could they do that? Okay, great.
It's ABDL Pedro _1925. And then FetLife is Pedro Luis Luis -DL.
Perfect. Thank you. So, friends, that's how you get a hold of our distinguished panel today. If you want to get a hold of me, you can write to me at loveandbrief@gmail.com. I am also resonant yes on all of the major platforms that I'm willing to bother to check, which is FetLife and Tumblr and Instagram. And no, I don't have TikTok, and I never open Reddit, even though it's awesome. I'm kind of a lurker on there. So go for one of the other choices. Also, big thanks to Teddy Bear for introducing me to Pedro, and to all of our guests for being willing to jump in and do this episode with me here right at the end of Pride Month. I can't wait to dig more into all of these issues and more, but we have to end here. This has been another edition of Love in Brief.